All right, cool. Looks like Jared shared the YouTube link. Thank you.
Can we promote Jacob so he can speak?
Yeah, you should be a panelist now.
I think I need that too.
And Pedro as well, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
What's the difference between panelist and attendee? Or like, sorry, talking permitted. What's the difference?
Panelist means you can drive the stream. You can control what's on the screen.
Where do you see that?
Only the hosts can control it. So hold on, I'm promoting everyone right now.
Cool.
All right, Andy, we're live whenever you're ready.
Cool. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 10th Town Hall. As always, being broadcast from around the world, but hosted from a castle in Cardona, somewhere in Spain, which is pretty exciting. We'll have some feedback on that at the end of today's Town Hall, but we've got a lot of stuff to get through. So as always, we'll sort of start with some general feedback from all of the things that Status has been involved in outside of just developments. We sent a team down to ETH Buenos Aires, which is part of the ETH Global Hackathon coordination. There's going to be further events in Singapore, Bangalore, Berlin, and San Francisco this year. So there's a great Medium post out about it if you want to find out more. And we'll certainly have a team at each one of those. So let us know if you're in the area and you'd like to participate. It should be easy to organize. Some feedback from the actual hackathon itself was that there was a really great project called the Token Sewer, which won. Their thesis being that we're sort of building a new kind of empire, but empires like Rome really functioned not predominantly on their emperors, but on their sewers. So they have a way for you to take all your shitcoins and then put them into the sewer that flushes them out the other side in some surprise boxes that you pay 5 DAI for, and then that DAI goes towards a charitable faucet. So they won for building up a whole linked system. We've also got a great raffle app that was built, but the guys are particularly keen to start using it in Status. So I'm really looking forward to the work that's going to start again this week on 101 extensions, because that will enable that sort of stuff and is particularly exciting and innovative, at least in my opinion. And then just some general feedback on the community in Latin America. We got hosted by the Zeppelin team, who just launched Zeppelin OS and managed to launch a major product and host this amazing event all in one. And it's really, Latin America is a very, very interesting place, particularly for blockchain and just decentralized technologies in general. The current inflation rate in Argentina is sitting at 40%. Venezuela is above 1,000. So people there have sort of a lived experience of what it's like when centralized and trusted parties like governments and banks fail. And one doesn't really need to explain deeply the needs for decentralization. It's just about getting down to business and building the tools that we need to actually organize ourselves. So that was really inspiring to be a part of. If you want to find out more, there's a blog on the Status blog, and you can read there. So over to Steph for our core contributors. We've just had one join this week. Steph, are you on?
Look, hey, I'm on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, good. So today, Lucas Haber joined us as a corporate accountant. Is working in the finance team together with Yasin. We also have still another 17 open roles. So check out the links in the slide, and if you can refer anybody or if you know somebody that would be a good match, please make sure that they get a chance to apply. And if you can go to the next one. From the people ops side, we've been doing a few changes. So the handbook that was launched the last time we talked is now public, and it has its own new URL. And we did that because we want to be as transparent as possible about how we organize, so that friends from the community or anyone who is interested in joining can browse through it and get a sense of how we work together. This last week, we also added a couple of extra pages to the site about how team members can manage their preferences for getting paid between fiat and crypto, how the rates are established, and also how we handle time off. Because we always said time off is flexible, now it's even more official. It is all of a work in process. So whenever you look through our pages, if there are questions that remain unanswered, please make sure to ping me or Carrie or Nabil or anyone in People Ops. So we make sure that we make this better and better. We started another experiment also last week, which is based on writing personal user manuals. It was an idea that Ali shared, and it's linked here on the slide. We figured that because we don't have the same opportunities to get to know each other that co-located teams that are in the same office have, it would be nice to write a page about oneself, how we work and how we handle things as individuals. So you can read some examples if you check the Slack profiles of, for example, Igor, Nabil, Carrie, myself, and Pedro. I think there is a new field which everyone has access to, which is called My User Manual, where you can find links to our documents. And of course, you're very welcome to write your own. Next thing that we're doing, which is really big, we're thinking about what is the best structure for us to work together, make sure that we're able to be efficient while we're keeping as non-hierarchical and flat as possible, which is what we really want. So we're collecting lots of feedback and ideas by talking to team members. And if you get a team on this topic, please don't be surprised. And by all means, share any thoughts that you have. And if you have any ideas that you want to share with us, spontaneous things are always very welcome too. Lastly, we have the next person in People Ops is going to join us around the 20th of July. So we're organizing our first team meetup where we can finally meet in real life and start planning the projects we're working on, the next things to do, and also have some social gelling time, which is really important. And this is it from my side, Andy. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Steph. Yeah, the people in People Ops rock so hard. Those user manuals in particular are super useful. I encourage everybody that's on this call and watching to write their own. I'm certainly going to do that because it's super useful. I feel like I know Igor in particular much better now. So thank you for that. Some study fundamental highlights just quickly from our study channel that we have. There was a great live stream posted by Kim, actually, which quoted Sir Tim Berners-Lee, who was speaking, and he's really on the warpath to find these completely anonymous ways, especially for people like journalists and human rights activists and whistleblowers, to provide a public online existence and a common identity across websites that we use that can support your online credibility. So anonymity and credibility are sometimes mutually exclusive things, but there are ways, if we're particularly critical and approach it in an innovative fashion, that we can think about bringing them together. And there's a lot of really great identity work happening at Status as well. If you're interested in that, speak to Ricardo or go and look in the identity branch of the contracts repo. There's some really, really amazing work there, and he was blowing people's minds with it in Buenos Aires, which was really great to see. There's also a fantastic gas golfing competition. This is where you sort of write smart contracts and try and optimize them for how much gas they use on the network so that users end up paying as little fees as possible. It's really awesome to see tools like this coming out that don't necessarily just have to do with security, but also optimization. And it's another sign of maturity coming through the ecosystem, which is fantastic. And then a really great article from Jacques about scaling Bitcoin through Lightning. And the beginning of that talk, if you sit down and watch it, is really, it comes with a whole list of great but simple reasons for why we need like sharding, which is sort of like scaling that happens at the protocol level of the network, and then also level 2 solutions, of which the ones that exist in Ethereum, the most prominent are probably TrueBits, Plasma, and state channels, being worked on particularly by the guys at SpagChain. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, do feel free to ask. And there's another link down there where you can follow especially Plasma in 10 minutes, which is being worked on predominantly by the Omisa Go team. So yeah, ask any questions if you have those in the channel. A marketing updates over to Johnny.
Thanks, Andy. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Cool. So one of the big things we're working on right now is a campaign called State of Us. We're working closely with Chad and Rachel to effectively communicate the state of the product, but more importantly, we're trying to communicate ways for everyone to get involved. So like one of the things we're doing is, we've got a podcast series, which Andy, you're running, new onboarding flows with new content for any new member to sign up. And we are running a paid pilot, but more importantly, this idea of community involvement, Kim and Ali are working with an awesome illustrator named Crystal to create this how to contribute infographic. It's really cool. It just basically shows the various ways any member can get involved, whether it's through code, through content, through hosting meetups, things like that. Also, we've got a 60-second video, which is in production, and we're crowdsourcing content from the community. So stay tuned for more information on how you can actually submit content and get involved in actually creating this video. So it'll be a completely community, well, not completely, but like community driven piece of content. To kind of piggyback off on this idea, we're going to be running community competitions for people to get involved and also to contribute content as well. And then Sean, now that he's now I think 3 weeks full time, which is great. He's rolling out his advocacy program. So there's going to be some really interesting things for the community to get involved through that. So Ali also is taking a deep dive back into the positioning and branding. One of the things we noticed, so early on, we had this idea of super app, which was great. But when we looked at it again, we just realized status has become so much more than that. That positioning was around the product and what the product can do and its features, but through Incubate, Embark, the community, and just becoming this ecosystem project, we wanted to rethink that and make sure our positioning was all encompassing. So we're taking a deep dive back into that now. Another exciting piece of work was the values swarm that kicked off last week. So thanks to everyone involved in that. It was great to get on the phone with everyone because, I think we had maybe not different opinions or views, but so many different ideas. So it was just nice to get on the phone with everyone and really, dive back into that. I have a call with Steph after this to figure out next steps and really the goals and deliverables for this. But one of the really interesting things to come out of it was this idea of creating like a rule book or like a constitution almost for status. So thanks to everyone involved in that, and we'll be continuing that work over the course of the next few weeks. Content, a lot of content in the works, which is great. So we've got the tech talks. Carrie has added some more documentation to how to sign up. Actually, some instructions for hosting the event, hosting the meet. So hopefully those talks get better and better as we go on. Andy, you're working on the Why Decentralization series, really just highlighting, why decentralization matters and why we're doing the work we're doing. Another thing that we're going to be doing is team updates. So we'll be working with people from each team. We had a call with Patrick and Hester last week to really highlight the work that the UXR team's doing, for example, and we'll work with Andre and his team, with Jacek and the research team. Marketing will be doing the same thing, really just to bring about transparency into all the work we're doing. Because, if you take a look through Slack, there's just so much happening, and, the marketing team wants to effectively communicate that and just, highlight and really show off the work that we're doing because it's great. We've kicked off a website refresh. Once again, Status has grown into so much more than just this product, through Incubate, Embark, and all the various moving pieces. So we want to kind of just rethink the website and make sure that information is easily navigable and digestible. Loads of community events. Jasek's got his meetup in Berlin at the end of the month. ETH Berlin and ETH Global. Now there's this series of hackathons which we're going to be involved in. The Status Hackathon that will take place end of October, so that's great. Stay tuned for more information on that, but we're really kicking off production with a production partner this week. And then we'll be at DevCon. So I know, Nabil, you sent out a form to who wants to be involved in these events, so please sign up and we'll make sure that everyone's got a place to stay. And then a quick update on projects. So Yuri and the team, they're working on 3.1, and we're going to help communicate that and create a series of small little short bursts for tutorials and information around that. We're kicking off an initiative with Jared, temporarily named S Prize. So stay tuned for more on that one. And then Incubate, Ben, Carl, and team, they set up an introductory call with our first Incubate last week. It's a really cool, interesting project ahead of the World Cup. So we're working with them to come up with their launch plans and launch comms. So more to come on that one as well. So a lot of really, really cool stuff. And first of all, thanks everyone for helping out the marketing team and providing us with information just to get out there. And that's it for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Johnny. So the regular weekly tech talks are back. Thank you particularly to Frank, who did an awesome talk on the road to ULC, which is the ultralight clients. There was some really interesting information in there about our various different attempts to try and get a light node running properly on resource restricted devices. I strongly encourage people to go and take a look at that. There was some really great information that's not readily available elsewhere. And it's really great to be able to surface a lot of the sort of deeper protocol work that's happening, in sort of random Gitter channels and various places around the net to a wide audience. So again, if you have any tech talks, this is particularly for our developers that you feel could be usefully shared with a wider audience. I know Jacek is planning something for Swarm, which is really exciting. And if you're working on something which you think could usefully be discussed with a wider audience, particularly because this is all about, empowering people to actually participate in these decentralized networks, then you can play an active role there. So sign up on the link and let us have a little window into your particular expertise. We now move on to UX and UX research. So this is Pat's baby. Pat, are you around?
Yeah. Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks, Andy. Yeah. So we basically wanted to kick off maybe just a regular update from the UX and UXR team, beginning this time with just letting you know about a week and a half ago, the design team met up in Amsterdam for about 4 days, and this is something that we'd like to kind of institute as a regular practice, where we maybe 2 or 3 times a year we get together and we meet somewhere to just discuss things, see if we can maybe reorganize the way that we work or deep dive into particular topics. Another practice that we would like to get into with these meetups is, if you go on to the next slide, is we typically try and make sure we set up a user study. So this is where we gather in one of these rooms and have people come in and they try out the app, or they have a particular set of tasks that they have to do with an app. In this instance, we wanted to focus particularly on the wallet. And so Hester set up some great studies where she had 2 people come in and try and do some wallet transactions as well as track transactions together. This was on Wednesday. And then on Wednesday afternoon, if you go on to the next slide, we took some of these findings that we saw in the study, plus previous topics or issues that we've discussed as a team together, and we do what's called a UX journey map. And this is basically just a fancy way of saying we print out all the screens and try and map them out on walls and go through and again talk about some of the issues that we see with the screens, talk about what we think are successful aspects of the UI, what needs to be worked on. If you go on, I'll try and recap. So basically from this particular week in these exercises, we had a couple of different takeaways. One of which was we decided to basically log everything that we've seen so far. So we have a backlog sheet of 62 core app issues that we've assigned unique IDs, and then some of them we kind of nominate to put into GitHub issues that we file. And then Hester is working on a fantastic finding site where she's going to summarize and visualize some of the issues and potential solutions for some of the issues that we saw. An example of that is basically we have something like 3 initial insights that you can take a look at. And one of which is that we still see that when people onboard to the wallet, they get confused about text formatting between the signing phrase and the seed phrase. So they might have set up a seed phrase before getting into the wallet, and they see the signing phrase and they confuse that it might be another way to authenticate into the wallet. Another aspect of that is kind of this confusion between maybe your account and your wallet is that people get kind of confused about the difference between a contact address and a wallet address. So we talked a little bit about the potential for future unification if that was possible, or other solutions if that's not. Additionally, we saw a kind of like an interesting, more minor issue about people not understanding why a wallet address is located under a label named receive. And so this is sort of brought up a conversation about where we actually put the wallet address if people are trying to find it easily. So those are just a few examples of a long list of issues that that we hope to work on in the coming months. The other things that are on the right-hand side are basically topics that we discussed through the course of the week. We don't need to dive into them, but you can skim through if you'd like. If you go on to the next slide.
Thank you, Pat.
Yeah. So we also wanted to talk a little bit about some activities that are going on aside from the meetup. So Dennis has been working on some wallet and signing flow iterations of doing things that are allowing people to paste from clipboard easily, or add context easily just with one tap, along with making transactions a lot more clear when you're getting to the final transaction screen. On the desktop side, if you go on to the next slide, Yuhei has been working on some really awesome desktop work where she's just marching towards a minimal viable product. And basically, seeing how she can play with the information architecture and allowing people to set up one-on-one chats. So this is really exciting to see for the first time. And finally, on the research activity side, if you go on to the last slide here, these are some things that we've been up to around basically understanding core usability issues with the app. But another kind of interesting project is that we've set up a profiling survey, which is basically kind of a larger survey, which we're fielding to the community right now. Which gets at what people think about different types of features that are in status and what their attitude towards them are. And this is going to play into a larger study called the App Audience Study, which will be a phased approach to kind of understanding what people's opinions are about the application across different geolocations like Iran versus the UK versus Japan and South Korea. That's pretty much the UX update for now.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Pat. And it's always incredibly important that we highlight just the quality and scale of some of the UXR that's really going on, because it's something that's not focused on in the ecosystem at the moment. And we've seen at like unconferences after EdCon and in various other places that there's a desperate need for this stuff. So Jared sent out a big EIP 0 survey, which Mami has done some really amazing data visualization work on. And I've also put together all of the ETH Prize interviews. And so we're gathering all of these data sets from across the community regarding what tools they need, what frustrations they have, what we can build next that will really have an impact for everybody across the broader community. And we'll also be open sourcing all of those tools, particularly around the data visualization, so that anybody can sort of run UXR at scale in the ecosystem, just because it's such a desperate need. So thank you to Pat and Hester in particular for really kickstarting this stuff in Status. It's fantastic to see. We move into Swarm updates. And the first, it's obviously the core first up, and the one that everybody in the Status channels has been waiting for over the last few days, some discussion around beta. And I believe this is us, Rachel.
Rachel, can you hear me?
Yes, go crazy.
Cool. Okay, yeah. So the great news is that we successfully released 0.9.19 on Friday. It's been really, really cool to see the traction inside Status since that release. To the community members who are listening, thank you so much for being in the status channel and in the app in general and participating with us. It's been super cool to see you guys connecting there. Of course, the big news with this release is the fact that mainnet is included. It's an option. If you've had trouble finding it, that's because it's still hidden. So if you would like to make real transactions inside status using mainnet, you can do so by activating developer mode, which is hidden under the advanced profile settings. So what's the big difference between beta and these alpha releases that we've been having? In beta, the opposite is going to become true. Instead of mainnet being an opt-in that's hidden behind developer settings, it's actually going to be the default for every user. And on the flip side, if you want to actually use test networks for development purposes, you'll need to go into dev mode. So because mainnet is going to be the default network, we're really prioritizing right now any bugs that have to do with chat or wallet or transaction security. We have a beta milestone on GitHub that's about 15 issues strong right now. And only once we have that down to 0 will we feel comfortable saying that we have a beta candidate. So you can click the link on this slide if you'd like to follow along and see the progress on all of that work. A couple other questions that we've been hearing from the community. Will there be a limit to iOS invites for beta? Yes, there will. We're still distributing beta via test flight on iOS. So that means we do have a limit, but if you don't have an invite yet and you want to be able to test with us, you can go to our website, status.im, and enter your email, and you'll receive an email with directions on how to request an invite. Will we be making updates as frequently to beta as we have been doing to alpha? Yeah, definitely, that's our aim. We hope so. We've been working on sort of a bi-weekly release cadence to this point, and after the last this past release, I think the test team took a lot of learnings away from the failed release before this past week, and they were able to make some improvements to the release testing process that should make that whole for us internally moving forward. And can we still suggest things and report bugs in beta? Yes, absolutely. And we would love for you to do so now in alpha as well. And you can do that simply by shaking your phone. I think that's it for this slide.
Perfect. There's also one thing that I want to say is particularly to the community members who are watching and furiously messaging everybody in status. It's so fantastic to see, and feel free to go ahead and create your own public chats to discuss, like domain specific topics of interest to you. You don't need to necessarily use status all the time. There's plenty of other topics out there, and you can create your own and set up your own chats with people about particular pieces of interest, like open bounties or sharding or zero knowledge or something random like pizza. Whatever you feel like, please feel free to go ahead, test it out, and give us your feedback. So now into the mobile app swarms themselves. The first is 83 energy efficient, and this is Igor. Igor, are you online?
I can take this one. Yeah, so we've seen some amazing work by the mobile app team and the 83 swarm by Igor and Roman, John, and Lucas. Seen lots of nice performance improvements this last release, and now when we have relatively empty chats, it's almost twice as performant as it used to be like a month ago, something like this. So really good work there. There's still some issues when we have a lot of messages, historical messages. So that's the sort of next challenge in terms of dealing with message reordering and making sure that works even if you have 1,000 messages in a public chat and so on. But really, for people who've been using that, especially on Android, this last release versus maybe 2 releases ago, there's a big difference. So really cool to see. Next up is Jacob, who's going to talk a bit about our new cluster.
So there we go. Jacob, are you online? Jacob?
Looks like you're on mute. Jacob.
He said he clicked on mute and it crashed. So I can do this briefly. So we have a new cluster. The main change here is that we have proper monitoring set up and also work in progress log aggregation and essentially making it scalable from the get-go, whereas the old cluster wasn't really scalable, and it wasn't straightforward for us to move nodes around and these kinds of things. So Jacob has done really great work here in terms of setting up tooling and getting visibility into this cluster as a whole. Some future improvements is around sort of having multiple data center support, which helps us with the censorship resistance, such as IPs being logged, and also doing some stuff around log aggregation and so on. If we go to the next slide, we have some pictures here. You can see in terms of how we can debug the system. So here is some monitoring where we can see this is work that Adam started doing a while ago, but sort of gradually improved on in terms of seeing whisper volume and the number of envelopes and peer utilization, and also sort of understanding how discovery works and all these things. And this is great in terms of giving us visibility and being able to debug things when they go wrong. So you can find this for core contributors at grafana.status.im, and then you can authenticate with GitHub. And next slide, we also have more sort of slightly more granular monitoring abilities. So in terms of seeing if mail servers can scale, one of our sort of KPIs is around having lots of concurrent connections and dealing with that properly. And one block of that is around memory usage. So with this, we have great insight into how the nodes are performing with respect to that and other metrics, and also connectivity and so on. Next slide.
Perfect. So
Anton.
Yeah, we move on to Anton. I just also, again, I love visualizations. It makes things so much easier for a broader range of people to understand. So it's really fantastic to see this stuff. And if Jacob has made it back onto the call, it's really great to have him on the team. And he's made a big impact from initially joining. So thank you to him for all of that hard work. Anton, you're up.
Hi all, I hope you can hear me. So yep. We have decent progress on automated testing side for last 2 weeks. Basically, all extended tests now are running against each PR, and we've decreased execution time from 1+ hour to 15 minutes. Also, we increased end-to-end test reliability. Basically, right now we are maintaining them in scope of the same PR where the feature or bug fix is introduced, which brings much more reliability. Also, another good thing is a Jenkins job for message reliability testing. It's POC for now, but it can be used by anyone. For now, there are 3 tests, which are offline messaging, public chat, and one-to-one chat. And you can trigger the job with an amount of messages that you want to send in public chat or between 2 devices or to receive in offline. For now, it's there is a restriction for 3 hours run on South Labs, but we are in contact with them in order to remove the restriction, and the limit is 15,000 messages in one-to-one chat. And as a result, you will get the graph. Next screen is a graph. Yes, it's a little bit squashed because we have a small screen, but you can see that more than 1,000 messages have been sent and received by a user, and the longest time to receive and display a message in UI is 4 seconds. The main goal of this test is to create an endless test which will run from nightly to nightly. So if new nightly appears, the test starts and sends messages with live graph. So anyone can check that graph. And when new nightly comes, and all the previous test stops and runs for new nightly, so endless test, which will show the message reliability in different chats. And in future, we are going to make it more like user-like with interruptions, switching between chats, going offline for 20 minutes, etc., browsing DApps, anything. And let's go back to the previous screen. Yes, so future goals is to cover with end-to-end tests interactions with DApps using status test DApp. create upgrade tests. And yeah, I already talked about endless message reliability test with live chart. So lessons learned is test trail reports cannot be public, so we will publish old reports on the PR with plain text and links. And yes, the limit for message reliability tests. That's why it's not endless live chart for now. And that's it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That's some really, really awesome work. And yet again, more great visualization tools make me a very happy person. That's very cool to see. So P2P, the new cluster, is this Oscar again?
I think Adam.
Yeah, I can take it.
Adam.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, cool. Yeah, so as you know, we have this new cluster. However, it was not released in 0919 yet. We plan to do it in 0920, but there are some implications. So we are moving to the new cluster because we need proper logging, monitoring, and pretty much have a cluster that is built for scalability and extensibility. And it was no other way to just rebuild it from scratch and prepare it properly. So this is huge kudos to Jakub for that. But yeah, we have this new cluster, and right now we would like to use it in the app. So the thing what we need to do is to update all boot nodes and server nodes and so on and so forth. But also we would like to separate old cluster from the new one to have like the clear monitoring and do not have any floating server nodes around that are not supposed to be in the new cluster. So the consequence of this is that we will have incompatibility between 0919 and 0920. It's pretty much a very similar thing to Whisper version 6 upgrade, where it was not possible to communicate between two different clients with Whisper version 5 and Whisper version 6. So here, when we do this upgrade of the cluster, it's not going to be possible to communicate between 19 and 20. But yeah, we need to do it just once, hopefully, and we'll have this new cluster up and running. So yep, that's the goal.
Perfect. Thank you, Adam. And it is worth mentioning that this incompatibility is not the same as the last one. So your accounts and all of that information will still be the same as you upgrade from 19 to 20. But obviously, you just won't be able to send a message to someone still running 19, right?
That's correct. Yep, that's correct.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So into chats. First swarm here is Confidence, led by Pedro.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
So for the last 2 weeks, we fixed all blockers for 0919, improving reliability, performance, and usability. In terms of reliability improvements, we fixed situations where messages were not being received after going online again with the app, or when the user had the one-to-one chat screen active and was receiving messages. We also fixed multiple bugs with contact requests. In terms of performance, we now only request new messages from mail server instead of a fixed period of the last 24 hours. So it's smarter about that. And that's pretty cool. And we made improvements in the chat grouping algorithm, and that's noticeable in large chats. I think it's around 4 times faster in a chat with 300 messages. In terms of usability, we added an expand and collapse button for long messages. Should help with being able to traverse the history better. We also allow adding custom mail servers and boot nodes. So this will come in handy if we have countries which block our mail servers and boot nodes. People will be able to just scan a QR code and be able to get up and running again. We also allow clearing the chat history. And for the time being, we disabled translations in order to focus on the critical path. In terms of future goals, we're going to be finishing the issues in the chat boards, especially making sure that we find a good solution for the mail servers blocked in Russia. And also some design issues, doing some improvements in terms of UX for the chat. The lessons learned so far, it seems like the 99% sent received ratio as an exit criteria is not really something we can use, because it just takes people leaving their phone for 24 hours and not opening status to skew that metric. So it ends up not being representative. It's probably the best way to have an exit criteria for the confidence swarm is to just, based on the feeling of people, if they trust the app to receive the messages, based on their past experience, if they trust the messages to be sent and received. That's it for the chat.
Perfect. Thank you, Pedro. Into wallet and accounts and the wallet improvements, which is led by Goran. Are you online?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep. Go ahead.
Cool. Thanks. Basically, the progress in Wallet over the last 2 weeks was exclusively on the bug fixing front. We've detected and fixed a whole lot of bugs, some of them which were known from before, and some of them which we detected only after we started testing on and trying out the app on mainnet. So now that after those battles, basically, Wallet is much more stable and secure and bug-free. The future goals, the immediate future goals, are pretty much to clean up the beta board and implement the missing things for beta, which are mainly the transaction gas settings for DApp transactions and the chat info message about the payment. And obviously, there's always more bug fixing and bug hunting and so on to make it even more stable and solid and trustworthy. The lessons learned so far are, first, that we must use the app in a realistic manner in order to detect actual bugs from actual usage. That specifically means that we need to test it and try it out on mainnet as well as on testnets, and that we must have as realistic data test sets on testnets as we do on mainnets, as much as it is possible. For example, a good selection of test tokens. And the other lesson learned so far is that we need to apply the shoot first, ask questions later policy with regards to bugs. So if it's a bug, it needs to be resolved before any new feature, no matter how harmless it seems to be. So that's the Wallet update. Over and out.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Goran. Always a little bit of flavor at the end there. That's some really, really exciting stuff. And huge kudos to you and Nastia for finding some nasty bugs that were not at all obvious and fixing them incredibly quickly. Those are some good lessons to have picked up there. So into DApps and developers, we'll do a team update here rather than focusing on the specific swarms that are working. And I think this is Rachel again.
Yep, right on. We are kind of operating as one big non-ephemeral swarm right now. So over the past 2 weeks, the DApp and developer engineering resources have been largely dedicated to being all hands on deck for these critical beta issues. So I'd kind of like to use this time to highlight what we're planning for the near term. We actually just had a planning session as a team to figure out a path forward post-beta. And the feature that we've decided we'd like to focus on upfront is providing support for ERC 721 tokens, aka collectibles, your crypto goodies, your crypto fighters, etc. And the reason that we've decided this feature makes sense for our team to focus on is because our goal is really just to give users a great DApp experience, right? And so if you're buying something inside a DApp, we can imagine that you would want the satisfaction and the security of having your purchases show up alongside all your other tokens in your wallet. We've also done a survey with some of our users, our community members, and we know that a good portion of community members do own collectibles. The bigger upside to making this a focus over the next few weeks and months is that it makes for a really great scoped use case for extensions. Because there's no standard data structure for ERC 721 tokens, in this case collectibles, we think it would be best if developers would be able to integrate their tokens within Status using whatever metadata is appropriate to their product. So this is going to be a great way for us to just kind of prove the concept of extensions and to identify any problems and opportunities that will come up early on. We also think that this extension will probably be relevant even beyond collectibles because we can imagine a world in which real world assets are eventually represented by ERC 721 tokens as well. The other sort of tangential work stream that we have is documentation work. We know that developer tools we build are worth nothing if we don't have documentation and proper instructions on how to use them. So we're beginning that with baby steps, just by reviewing the existing wiki content. And Andy, I'm relying on you for that largely. But we'll just review the wiki content, see what's still relevant, what can be updated, and we'll most likely end up migrating that content over into a static website. We've been really inspired by the Embark team's beautiful website and documentation, and we think that we could have a lot better UI for referencing status materials. So that's also on our radar.
Yeah, I promise I will get to that later today, Rachel, just for you. The other thing that I wanted to mention on this front, and it's been something that I've been selling hard in the Cardona Castle as well, is just how good Julian's documentation and communication has been around extensions. And I really think that it should serve as a model for how to think about making changes that we need to right now in order to make something work. So in this case, third-party integrations, but thinking very carefully and strategically about the long-term implications and compromises that we're making when we choose a certain technical solution to a given problem. So Julian went ahead, he first wrote a manifesto, which explained at a high-level conceptual overview what he wanted to achieve with extensions and make it possible for people to actually build properly decentralized applications that are really about the Web 3 and not Web 2.5, and we're not using the same old APIs and the same old thought patterns, and gave like a really brilliant conceptual overview. He then wrote a technical spec and sort of implemented with code snippets exactly what he was talking about in the conceptual level. And it makes it really, really awesome for people like me and Rachel to come in who are not necessarily quite as technical. And it actually is like a fantastic learning opportunity for all of us because we get to see what Julian wants to achieve at a high conceptual level and how that gets translated into closure and the code that's needed to run the stuff in production. And so it's a really great like learning opportunity for both of us. It's a really fantastic document for the rest of the team. It's easy to share. It's easy to tell people like what the intention is here and how we're going to achieve it. So really huge kudos to Julian on that. 101 extensions is where to go to look for some of those docs. And you can just ask Julian for a link to the Google Docs that he wrote up initially before writing the idea. I think that it's a really great template to use when we need to make decisions that do have long-term implications but require fixes now. So thank you for that. Into some of the research swarms to end off. Nimbus, and this is being presented by the entire NIM team. I'm not sure who's on the call to.
That would be me, Zahari.
Perfect. Thank you, Zahari.
All right. So we kept making improvements to the Nimbus virtual machine. We refactored the gas price computations, improved the test coverage and the number of tests that are passing successfully. And we are exercising more and more of the networking code that have been developed separately. Our goal is still to sync with the blockchain and being able to execute the entire history of the blockchain until the current point. On the other front, our library for JSON RPC clients and servers is almost ready, and we'll be making it a standalone release that the entire NIM community will be able to use. We've also released the first version of our new async core for NIM. We are now in the process of integrating it in our existing networking libraries and measuring the performance improvements. The main goal here is to increase the efficiency and the performance of networking code in general. We've also developed a test bed that will be able to test the compatibility of Nimbus with the other Ethereum clients within the context of a private blockchain, a private network. And it will be possible to define automated test scenarios that try to create a number of transactions between the clients, to execute smart contracts, and so on. Basically, our goal is to have integration tests that test everything on a very high level in the future.
Fantastic.
And we've also, finally, the good news is that we've finally submitted the grant proposal for Nimbus, and we hope to have feedback from the Ethereum Foundation soon, and hopefully their support for the project. So thanks for everyone who have been involved in this.
Perfect. Thank you, Zahari. Yeah, it's really exciting to see that work moving so fast on NIM and Nimbus. It's always fantastic to have more and more clients operating across Ethereum, because that's also another kind of decentralization that we care about deeply. So ULC, this is the ultralight clients, and it's being led by Boris.
Hello, everyone. Could you hear me?
Yes, but you might need to speak up a little bit.
Okay. So yeah, 2 weeks we have resolved all user blockers. So we prepared ULC clients to test with the Ethereum. So we're going to make it today. The next 2 weeks we are going to integrate ultralight client to Status Go and update our status cluster for supporting ultralight client, and we're going to work on documentation for ULC. That's it.
Thank you so much, Boris. Yeah, some really, really exciting work going on there. And like I say, if you want to find out more about how to get involved there, Frank's talk on our YouTube channel is really the best place to start. So into desktop, and this is React Native Qt being led by Max.
Well, so last 2 weeks progress we made on React Native Desktop. Automated patching of third-party node modules on npm install was made. Enhancements of text input React Native component support in React Native Desktop. And our future priority is to support ongoing development of status IAM desktop app. That's all.
Perfect, thank you, Max. And desktop in general, the Swarm updates, I'm not sure if this is Max or Vitaly.
Vitaly, I can speak up. Hi, guys.
Woo, welcome, Vitaly.
Yeah, welcome, everyone. So during the last 2 weeks, we focused on streamlining, documenting, and simplifying the setup and development process of the application, and started fixing some bugs, and immediately ran into some issues with the tooling because this is a very fresh project, and there have been some corners, sharp corners that we had to basically smooth up. And this was basically achieved. So huge kudos to Volodymyr and Max for getting some stuff done, like enabling hot reload, Figwheel hot reload, which is extremely helpful for us. And since this is done, the rest of the stuff actually getting work done should go on much smoother. So, and apart from that, we have basically condensed the list of use cases for the beta to be released in Q2 to just 19 use cases. 19. This is to be, we're going to focus on reliable messaging, basically using the status desktop as a messaging app. We also had the first design preview ready. This was prepared by Oiga. And a brief stats for now. So after we have collected the use cases, they have been transferred to the project board by Nastya and Tatiana. And basically we have 15 issues to do, 5 in progress, 5 already done. The more attentive of you might notice that 15 plus 5 plus 5 does not add up to 19, which is obviously due to the some of those issues in the board being some bugs that appear from time to time, because as we develop using status React on the desktop, from time to time we have some issues that have appeared due to the new and yet untested nature of the desktop fork of React Native itself. But so far we've been able to nail down most of the issues we faced and going on from there. So.
Awesome, thank you so much. It's really, this is definitely one of the more exciting things that's been happening in Status recently. It's been awesome to see you guys squashing all of those bugs and making it easier to get desktop actually running and using React Native on the desktop. It's something that I think will draw a lot of wider interest from all kinds of communities, from people wanting to run their own mail servers and nodes to people who are just fascinated by the fact that we're making React Native work on a desktop, which is awesome. So a last little slide from me is just that a number of the team have gathered in Cardona in Spain for a sort of week getaway with the Givey team, the Swarm City team, some people from MyCrypto, and a few other random folks from across the community. It's been a really, really great time. It's fantastic, much like Pat was saying about the UX gathering in Amsterdam, even though we're a big fan of being a fully decentralized and remote team, it is really good fun to gather in person and be able to attack some of the issues that require everybody's brains being in the same room at the same time. Jacek in particular has finally been granted his wish to get more of the core developers working on some research stuff, and a lot of the focus of this week has been on looking into Swarm properly and trying to understand what it might look like to integrate different aspects of it and how we could usefully do that and test things like PSS against Whisper and make sure that we still have something stable that works without any sort of compromises. There's been some really, really interesting research, particularly into sort of cohesion resistance and safe and decentralized messaging, which is, as everybody knows, a very difficult problem. So today is just a hack day. We're working on some of the mail server stuff and playing around with a bit of PSS, as well as some future sort of improvements, particularly around Swarm integrations. So that's a huge amount of fun. I strongly encourage all and every other teams to get together at some stage because it really does add a dimension to the work that's quite difficult to achieve when it's completely remote. So that's pretty much everything. And we move into Q&A.
Do we have any questions from any of the YouTube or Riot or anywhere?
We can give it a minute while we wait to see if there are any. I can't see any because of the fact that I need to present these slides.
Johnny, the eye on the prize. Anything? Nothing on YouTube.
Nothing in YouTube.
Right. So good. Otherwise, you can find us in Riot.
But our Griffin can sit over there. Just lots of space. We'll just sorry, we're not using the buttering Stardust. Absolutely. They give it.
There's a question regarding where someone can find more information about messaging. Where would you point someone to?
So the simple truth of it is that the Whisper documentation is a bit of a shambles at the moment. We have that internal doc that Eric and Alex worked on about how we've written our client-side communication protocol and the changes that we've made. That should be opened up very, very shortly, and it'll probably be the definitive source for how to use Whisper. The basic truth, as Nabil discovered the other day, is that when you're looking for documentation on Whisper, it's very fragmented and generally speaking out of date. So we'll make that a priority to get out some of the developer docs written by Eric and Alex so that people can read more, especially about the latest protocol and some of the improvements that we made.
We also have FYI a 173 documentation swarm, which is going to kick off probably after the beta, and it's going to consolidate after the existing documentation and put it in one place. So it's a draft in the ideas repository right now.
Perfect. So yeah, if that's everything, Johnny.
Sweet. Thanks, Andy. Nice work.
Yeah. Thanks so much, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a fantastic week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.